down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. It's an open mic night for photographers. Get ready for 60 minutes of your photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey everybody, it's Wednesday night this week and we're back. Thanks for joining me, gang. If you were here Monday night, you already know Monday night didn't happen, so we're doing a do-over. I was having all kinds of issues trying to connect to YouTube servers. Found out today, finally got it all resolved, that I also had a software issue that was complicating things. So we're fixed, we're back, we're ready to go. So gang, seriously, thank you for checking in with me tonight. I have a lot of cool stuff to talk about, so I wanted to make sure that I still got this show in because there's not going to be a TogChat next Monday night. I'm going to be in Las Vegas at WPPI, hopefully getting to meet a whole bunch of you. So it was important that we were able to announce the winner from last week's TogStuff giveaway. I wanted to tell you about this week's TogStuff giveaway. So obviously, as always, check in. Let me know where you're from. Got a lot of people here. Carl's here. Marcus, David, Ishmael's here. DB Kelly. I know Sven's here. Ajax. Kat's here. John Edwards here. Thank you, gang. I really, really appreciate it. So let's take care of that all-important TogStuff giveaway right away, okay? So this week, I'll tell you what's coming up first. Let's start there. I have a really cool prize from a brand new sponsor, and that sponsor is Spider Holster. So these are the folks that make probably the ultimate system for being able to wear your camera, whether it's on a specialized belt, whether it's on your own belt, whether it's on a backpack. These guys are the bomb. So I want to switch over the screen here and show you what we got. So this week at tog.chat/win, you have an opportunity to win a SpiderLite camera system. So now, just so you know what you're getting into here, the SpiderLite system is designed for lightweight cameras, meaning mirrorless cameras. So if you're a Sony user, if you are a Fuji user, if you're an Olympus user, if you are a Panasonic user, this is the system for you. They do have another version, which is not what I have as a prize this week, that is designed for the heavier DSLRs like the Nikons, the Canons, and so on, okay? So these things sell for like about 125 bucks in store. I love them. I use them. In fact, I've even modified my setup with some of the additional accessories that they have. You guys know that I like the tether, and I use the tether block all the time. Well, they also sell just the pin that you can screw into a 1/4-20 thread. So that way, if I'm not in the mood to use my tripod in the studio, I can have my tether block set up, my Tether Pro cables locked in place on the camera, and the Spider Holster pin on the bottom so that I'm still able to wear the camera, move around, work freely. I absolutely love this thing. So this contest, since there's no TogChat next Monday, this contest is going to run all the way up until March 5th. Okay, so that's 2 weeks, well, a week and a half since we're running a little late here, right? So a week and a half is when we will announce the winner, and then sure enough, I got some more cool prizes lined up for that week. So make sure that you take a few minutes, either do it right now while you're listening or do it when TogChat is over, but make sure that you sign up for your chance to win, okay? So one other really cool announcement that I wanted to talk about, because usually on Monday nights I tell you guys about the PhotoFlex Share Your Lighting contest. Well, since we're running a little bit late, we've missed this week's contest. But I wanted to congratulate one of my Facebook group members and a young lady that's frequently here on Monday nights. I haven't seen her name go by yet, so I don't know if she's here tonight. But Katie Rogers, who's from up in Massachusetts, she won this week's contest, the Share Your Lighting contest. And the prize this week, what was the prize here? Let me see. It was it's the 39-inch by 39-inch light panel kit. It's like a $110 piece of lighting gear. So next week, I'm not going to be here to announce it. I'm going to be in Las Vegas. So make sure that you remember to enter this contest. So in the chat window here, first, I'm going to give you the email address, okay? It's tellus@promarkbrands.com. Promark Brands is the parent company for PhotoFlex. If you want to read more about the contest, you can go to their Facebook page. Here's the link in the chat window also. You submit 2 pictures. You submit a finished shot, and it doesn't have to be a person, by the way. it could be a picture of your dog. It could be a product shot, a still life, any one of those, okay? But you submit the finished picture and you submit a behind the scenes photo with a little description of how you did the shot. And the cool part is you don't have to use PhotoFlex gear to be able to win the prize. How many other companies are going to give you a prize even if you're not using their gear? Seriously, it's pretty cool. So seriously, it's an opportunity to win great product. They give away everything from backgrounds to reflector kits, you name it, all kinds of prizes. Make sure that you get in on this. The contest gets judged every Wednesday, usually by noon or so on Wednesday. They will announce the weekly winner. So seriously, make sure you get in on that, okay? And then I promised the winner to this week's Spider holster, or excuse me, this week's TogStuff giveaway, sorry. So that is the 1-year pro subscription for web hosting at format.com, who I strongly recommend over Squarespace. We've talked about this many, many times. If you check out my marketing videos on the site, I'm not a big fan of Squarespace for a whole litany of reasons. And no, that's not because Format is giving me prizes, okay? I've been a customer of Format. I highly endorse what they're doing. The winner for the 1-year subscription is Karen Langley from Bristol, Wisconsin. So congratulations, Karen. She will be receiving her sign-up codes via email so that she can get her year subscription. But again, for the rest of you, here's your chance to win that spider holder. So make sure that you are signing up at tog.chat/win. And there's a whole bunch of different ways you can enter. You can get multiple entries. It increases your odds of being able to win the contest. So I hope you're going to be next up on the list. All right, gang. So we've got a lot of actually really good questions lined up here. So I want to dig in and get started on these questions. And by all means, you guys can keep posting questions in the chat window. I have some that were already posted on Monday when we couldn't get things live. So I'm going to start with those, and then I'll catch up to all the stuff that's going to go by in the chat window here. Okay. So the first one that I have, and I actually think this one is from 2 weeks ago. I think I honestly just missed it when I did TogChat 2 weeks ago. It's from Carl, who I know Carl's here. I saw his name go by. He mentioned that a couple weeks back, I talked about a down and dirty way to be able to calibrate your computer monitor for brightness when printing. So he asked me if I would explain that again really quick. And it's super simple. One of the most common beginner dilemmas with printing, when you're going to print at home, you go out, you spend big bucks to get a nice printer and get the proper inks for it and to get the good papers. And one of the most common things I hear from people is, my prints keep turning out really dark. And even then, people will go to the trouble of calibrating. And depending on which calibrating tools you use and which options you select, then you get the color right, but your prints are still turning out really dark. I had that same problem. Been there, done that. And when someone pointed out to me what the solution was, boy, did I feel stupid, because it's actually kind of obvious, but it also presents a bit of a challenge. So here it is. It's real simple, okay? Remember that your computer monitors are backlit, right? So that's why your pictures wind up coming up dark. So it's a real simple solution. Take a white piece of paper, printing paper, okay? Hold it next to your computer screen. Open up Photoshop and just make a nice big file and fill it with white. RGB 255, 255, 255, right? Hold the paper next to the white on your computer screen. And what you need to do then is you need to adjust your room lights, the ambient light in your room, until they are bright enough that the white paper looks equally as white as the white in Photoshop. When you do that, 99% of the time, if you run a print at that point, you will get a print that is as bright as the image on your computer screen. Now, that's not a fix for color management or anything else. As Carl phrased it, it's a down and dirty trick that works. If you're like me, I tend to do my post-processing in dim lighting. It's just more comfortable for me. Even though, people tell you that's bad for your eyes, everybody that I've ever talked to is like, yeah, so many people I know work completely in the dark. The only light is their computer screen. Plus, your pictures always look a little bit better. The colors look richer, they're brighter, all that good stuff. And then indeed, you go print it and it's dark. It's like, what the heck? That's why. It's because the image on a computer screen is looking good because it's backlit. So if you want to be able to get that print matched, take a white piece of paper, light the room, and I hate to tell you, you're going to find out the room's got to be pretty doggone bright. But what I did before that, I learned that tip, which was, this is a horrible suggestion, so please don't do this, but I'll tell you what I did, my learning curve. I used to create little actions where I would like dial in additional brightness like mandatorily. So before I would print, I would dial in like +10 of brightness. And the problem was even that was hit or miss. But at least my first test print out of the printer would be closer to the way I wanted it to look than what I was getting if I didn't dial in that plus. Still not really very efficient, not at all accurate, but it would save me a couple sheets of paper in the testing process. Because, if you're working with a nicer printer, and, there's nothing wrong with doing your own printing, you're going to spend a lot of money for the inks. The paper's actually not that cheap. Yes, it's all cheaper than sending it out. And then you have the satisfaction of having your own control and being able to do it yourself. So I highly recommend it if you're into that. But you can completely kind of turn the whole thing upside down if you're having to run 5, 6, 7 sheets of paper to get the print where you want it to be. That kind of defeats the purpose. So that's why ultimately, if you are going to print at home, your best bet is to go ahead, as you're budgeting for your printer, budget for a color management tool, okay? And make sure you get a good one that's going to help you adjust the brightness. It's going to handle all your color management, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of options out there. I'm not going to lie to you. I do no printing at this point, so I'm not even going to begin to try and tell you which is the best. I will tell you the new X-Rite ones. I particularly like their feature set, having read about them, because they literally go through the entire process from, working with your files all the way out to the printer. So, certainly, again, it's giving you more control. And if you want that quality, the control is the key. So hopefully that helps out. And Carl, hopefully that helps you out. So next question I had up, again, this is a leftover from Monday. We're going to catch up on the Monday questions here since Monday didn't go so well. Ajax asked, when he's shooting in his home studio using only the light from speedlights and white reflectors, should he set the white balance in the camera instead of leaving it in auto? Recently, he did some headshots of a guy with kind of pale skin, and then when he uploaded him into Lightroom, he noticed that the skin had a slight green tint. So he corrected it by bumping the magenta in the white balance slider. He didn't know where the green could come from. Nothing in his studio is green. So, Ajax, my recommendation to you is this. When you're working in a studio setting or any kind of controlled setting, so keep in mind a studio setting could be a headshot photographer walking into corporate offices and setting up strobes, because at that point your strobes are overpowering the ambient light and you're essentially creating a studio, right? So in a controlled setting, I would strongly recommend avoid auto. Pretty much every camera, now listen close, you're going to think I'm flip-flopping. I'm not flip-flopping, I want to give you all the background information. Pretty much every brand of camera out there today, the auto white balance feature in those cameras, pretty doggone amazing. I mean, it really is very, very impressive how well they work. But we have to be realistic about the fact that it is still essentially AI. It's artificial intelligence. Okay, so it's going to take all the colors it sees and it's going to average things out and it's going to spit out, based on an algorithm, what its best assessment is for what's the right color balance. So certainly you could have a person, maybe they're wearing a bright red shirt, that could throw your color in one direction. If there's a lot of that shirt in the scene, maybe you've got one color background and a contrasting color in the person's shirt, and they're both taking up equal amounts, in the scene. That can start to tweak your color balance one way or another, regardless of the lighting that you're using. Because remember, the camera's going to evaluate what it's seeing when you're on auto. So for me, I will tell you that with my Olympus cameras, and I don't even use the flash setting. So, and this is my own little quirk. I haven't actually tried it on Olympus. I should try it, but it's just carried over for me for all these years. I set my white balance when I'm shooting with strobes in a studio. I set them at the Kelvin temperature, 5600K. And that's just been my go-to setting. So, you know, when I left Nikon, picked up with Olympus, I actually just automatically did that. And that's what I've been using. So, and the nice part with Olympus has a lot of kind of custom modes, and even up on the top dial where you have like program manual, shutter priority automatic, aperture priority automatic, there are 3 custom settings on that dial. So I have one that's set up for my studio shooting available light, and that one actually happens to default to auto white balance, because if I'm shooting with available light, like the LED lights or sometimes with my fluorescent lights, they're different white balances, so I'll custom white balance in that situation. I have a second one that's set up for shooting with strobes. That defaults to the 5600K, and it also sets my my live view on my LCD and the EVF so that I'm looking through the lens wide open and not seeing it stop down, because in a studio that becomes problematic. And then the third one I have not assigned anything to yet, but it's there. So I would encourage you, you know, what you're describing without knowing exactly what colors the guy was wearing, how much of each is in the frame, et cetera, et cetera. It just simply sounds like the camera was off a little bit because of what it was seeing. That's not that uncommon. So yes, you could either go ahead and set things at like Kelvin temperature, since you're using flash. You could set it to the flash setting, which again is also you know, really quite accurate and works. And also, you know, Martin Tran just mentioned here, which is very true, the color checker passport is, he calls it, it's the bee's knees for controlled settings. Yes, actually it is. I mean, the color checkers are great. I do have them. Had them for years, but I'll be really honest with you, I don't actually use them that much anymore, because in the time that I've had the color checkers, technology has progressed to the point that the cameras do an incredible job. And when I'm shooting with strobes, I know they're putting out 5600K, so I don't, there's no guesswork there. The only time I find myself using my color checkers if I'm out on location and I'm doing stuff where color accuracy is really important. Remember, when you're photographing people, how accurate do you need your colors to be? Much of what we do as people photographers, and even creative people photographers, it's subjective when it comes to the color. So it's really kind of a personal choice, just how deep you're going to get into that color correction, color balance aspect, and how accurate you want to be in that regard. Okay. Adam asked, if I shot with any other Olympus bodies besides the EM1 Mark II, if so, my thoughts. Adam, I have not, to be really honest with you. So as a lot of you know, I'm just about 3 months in to the Olympus system. So I came in with the EM1 Mark II. And I'll be really honest with you. So a lot of you know I'm going to Las Vegas next week, and I'm going to be speaking for Olympus at WPPI. I was in Nashville for Olympus. I got to speak one day for them down there, and that was the first time that I got to handle the Pen F. And as much as I yell at people to not have gas, I have got serious gas for that camera. I want that camera. I don't need that camera. I want that camera. I love the size of it. I love the features. The camera is just amazing as far as I'm concerned. So before I go on any kind of vacation this year, which will probably be this summer, hands down, I will be buying that camera, because that's going to be my take-on camera. But in terms of actually getting out there, shooting with them, using them, I haven't, Adam. And you know, one of the things that I've been very kind of upfront with people about, obviously I came from cameras that were, you know, 30 megapixels and up, and going to and full frame. They're going to the micro four thirds. You know, a big part of what I've been trying to educate people is that, you know, hey, look at the work that I'm doing. If you guys follow me on social media, even today, you see images that I'm posting with these cameras. I haven't skipped a beat over what I was doing. However, let me be clear. Yes, it's a smaller file. Yes, I've got fewer megapixels. It is more than adequate for the high-end work that I'm doing. But I will admit, going less than 20 megapixels, which a lot of the other Olympus bodies are, not all of them, but a lot are, for me, it would cause me concern. Since I've been an Olympus user, I've joined a lot of the Facebook groups, and I'll tell you what, I am still incredibly impressed with the work that comes out of pretty much all of those cameras. So again, at the end of the day, it's you really need to start backwards when you're trying to make your gear choices, and when you're, especially, I know a lot of you stress, should I do APS-C? Do I need full frame? Is Micro Four Thirds going to be enough? We hear this all the time. You really got to start at the end, meaning what's the intended use for your pictures? And obviously there's always going to be exceptions, so you have to kind of work out an average, right? So for me, I am able to do everything I need to do with this 20 megapixel OMD EM1 Mark II. In fact, I'm really excited, so I'll give you guys a little tip here. If you're coming to WPPI, some of the images that you see me post on social media in the last couple of months since I've gotten my Olympus cameras, you're going to see them really big. I don't mean like 16 by 20 big. I mean several feet big on the Olympus booth. So I'm dying to see them. So, you can go crazy large with these. But if indeed I ever had a need that I had to go crazier large yet, then certainly it might be a situation where if a client's demanding that they need that, then I may go out and I may rent a large format type camera, and the client's going to pay that cost. But as far as my own work and my own needs, these cameras are, definitely more than adequate. So, am I ever planning on coming to the Atlanta area? I hope to come to Atlanta. I love Atlanta. Atlanta's a blast. I have nothing scheduled at the moment, but I will tell you, if here's a page on my website that you want to bookmark. Okay, let me switch over to joeedelman.com here. On my website, up at the top here where all the navigation is, just click on the lectures and the workshops. This gets updated every time I have a new booking, and you'll be able to come here. You can see everything that I have scheduled for the rest of the year, where I'll be speaking, what the topics are. The only thing that is not in here at the moment, and I'll be adding it later tonight, I just got confirmation that on May 10th and May 11th, I'll be in Fort Worth, Texas at the Fort Worth Camera Photo Fest. So I'm going to be down there on the 10th for a drinking click from Olympus. And then on the 11th, I'll be doing a workshop there also. So bookmark that page, and I update it routinely as bookings come in for talks and that. And, once the contracts are signed, all that gets posted and it gets added there. Roderick, did I notice any differences between the EVF and the Pen F and the EM1 Mark II? So my experience with the Pen F so far has been playing with it in Nashville. And when I say playing with it, I literally mean handling it and really kind of looking it over. I have not taken a single frame with it yet. I've seen a lot of images done with it. I didn't notice anything, but I don't want to tell you there's no differences because I don't have firsthand working knowledge, so I'm not even going to guess. So Chris is willing to sell one. We'll see, Chris. We'll see. But Roderick, if you check back with me after Vegas, let me know. Remind me about that, and I will let you know, because I do plan to take a secure digital card and shoot some frames with a Pen F. Since I'll be at their booth most of the time, I am going to kind of put one through its paces a little bit. Okay. All right. So the next question I had here was from Jean Edward. He asked, he's going to be getting an extra flash unit to start experimenting adding rim lighting to his portrait. So just did a little bit of background here. Jean Edward is one of my patrons. So we've been working with him, as we do with a lot of the patrons, on different projects or learning curves that they have. We've been working with him on kind of building his lighting setup and building his lighting skills. And this is something that I talk to a lot of you about, is the idea of don't go out and buy like a whole kit full of lights to start. It's the worst thing that you can do, because the problem is once you invest that money, you have all those lights, you want to use all those lights, and it's overwhelming, and it makes it 10 times harder to learn. So the best thing you can do is do your research, figure out what brand of lights you want, specifically what models, figure out what types of modifiers you want, what brand of modifiers. In other words, put together on paper your dream lighting system. And when I say dream, realistically dream, okay? Not the one that you're going to buy tomorrow, but the one that you want to have 6 months or a year or 2 years down the road. And then go out and buy one light and a stand and a trigger. That's it. And use that light. Use that light until you have mastered getting great exposures and decent lighting with that one light, no modifier, no nothing. And then go out and buy your first modifier. Not a second light. Buy your first modifier. And then master using that modifier until you are simply bored with it because you've got it nailed down and you can do a great job with it. Then go get a second light and a second stand. And then master that setup accordingly. So John Edwards' question here is, he wants to get another light to start working with rim lights. Should he get a modifier for it? If so, what is the versatile one to start with? He now uses a 60 centimeter rapid dome, which is that PhotoFlex rapid dome that I did the video about. So he's basically trying to think ahead, in terms of what could he do, what could he use. So Jean Edward, I mean, this is kind of one of those ones, it's going to come down to your personal preference in the end, but my recommendation would be, because I do know that you're working kind of on a limited budget with these things, and you're trying to earn some money as you go to pay for it. So my advice would be, if you're going to get any kind of a modifier for that flash, since your intent is to use it for rim lighting or a hair light to be able to separate the subject from the background, I would say, instead of getting like a softbox or even an umbrella, etc., maybe look at a modifier system like MagMod as an example, and consider something like the Mag Bounce, or even, and I don't have a brand name that comes to mind, but if you do a little bit of research online, you'll find lots of them, because you can even find the cheap Chinese ones for this. Even potentially get like a snoot that you could put over your speed light, because what that's going to do for you, it's going to allow you to not only control and manage your rim lighting, it's also generally going to give you the ability to be able to put some type of a filter or gel in it. But with that snoot, you can then also turn it around, aim it at the background, and create kind of a glow. Okay, so I would say for modifiers, sure, but I wouldn't go the route of like beauty dishes, softboxes, umbrellas for this one. Since you're kind of targeting it as a rim light, I would suggest, let's get you set up so that you've got some versatility with rim lighting and also a background light. That's the route that I would go. So, Steven Squires, I downsold someone who was ready to spend $5,500 on new lights. He bought two $40 flash brackets and $80 soft boxes. Saved him over $5,000. He already had the flashes he needed. Master the gear you have. Yes. And hey, gang, I want to tell you something really cool. I'm going to call him out here. This guy that just posted that message, Steven Squires, the guy that's telling you don't spend crazy amounts of money on gear. Be realistic about your gear purchases. Steven Squires is the product development guy and the marketing guy for Interfit Photo. Yes, the Honey Badgers. That's the man right here. Okay. In fact, by the way, and I know it's in my email inbox, Steven, so I won't say too much, but I will tell the rest of you this. Okay. I think it's on their website already. You might want to check out Interfit's website. If it's not there today, I know it's going to be there like in the next 24 hours, and Steven will chime in now and he'll tell us. But Interfit is releasing a whole new line of what they call studio essentials. And this is everything from like modifiers to grip gear, and awesome stuff. Okay. Very, very reasonably priced, really good quality, well designed. This is not meant to be the high end, spend stupid amounts of money, Westcott kind of stuff. This is the stuff that's as good as Westcott, serves all the same purposes, does all the same jobs, but is not going to break your bank. So imagine, it's coming in around the price points that you see some of those foreign brands on Amazon, but it's got the design and the feature sets of the more expensive brands like Westcott. So it's called Studio Essentials by Interfit Photographic. Check it out. I'm kind of really excited because I get to do 2 demos for Interfit while I'm in Vegas. So I'll get to play with a lot of these new gadgets and I get to see them. Steven made the mistake of sending me an email and saying, hey, take a look at the list. What do you want us to bring? And I think he regretted sending me that list because I came up with a nice big laundry list of stuff. That's like, yeah, bring me all this stuff because I want to try it. So Chris, that's a good question, but Steven's here. So if he doesn't come back with an answer about the Netherlands, I will catch up with him and I'll get you an answer. So, hey, you guys know in the past, I mean, I've done this with PhotoFlex. I've done this with a lot of companies. I try to get these companies in here whenever I can. Steven's great. He checks in all the time. But I want I want you guys to try and have access as much as possible, because this way you're talking to the people that are making the decisions. Okay. So, oh, and I see his message. It's up. So yes, if you check out Interfit's website, all the Studio Essentials line is up there. I believe it's like close to or just over 100 new products. We're talking a ton of stuff, gang. Really, really great stuff. So check it out. Okay. So, let's see. James Mazzone, a question that I missed 3 weeks ago. Here's James. Set me straight, man. You missed my question. So what's the aspect ratio you use for your portraits? I use the default 4:3. That's it. I don't change, anything there. I do, my cropping in post as far as that goes. Gregory, will Interfit have a Canadian distributor? I know they're working on it. And again, Steven's here, so let's see if he can come in and tell us what the process is. Canada's kind of tough in terms of getting all the rules and regulations lined up to be able to export the stuff and all that kind of thing. And I've heard from a lot of companies that while it's great to be able to sell in Canada, and most, not all American companies will go through the process and work it out, it takes some time and there's a little bit of effort involved. So I'm pretty sure, hopefully I'm not wrong here, but Steven will set me straight. I'm pretty sure Interfit's in the process of getting that worked out. So it's coming, but it takes some time. Okay. So Marcus Frank, you had a memory that I wanted to come to Photokina. Yeah, I would love to come to Photokina. Fingers still crossed. I'm still kind of working out to see if that can potentially happen. In fact, I got my passport updated and everything. There were 2 shows that I was hoping to make this year. One is obviously not happening because it's kind of already here on us, and that is the show in Birmingham in the UK, because I've got speaking engagements that I booked here, so they conflict. So Photokina is still on my list, but I've also got to see if I can, work that out in terms of maybe lining up some speaking engagements or something like that. But I would love to get to Photokina, and especially since this is the last one that's going to be on the 2-year cycle. I don't know if you guys are aware, but starting next year, Photokina will be an annual show. So I'm sure that's going to change it a little bit. Maybe not in a bad way, but it's going to change it a little bit. So since this is the last of the every 2 years, and let's face it, there's always huge announcements at Photokina, I'd love to make it there, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen. And I will tell you guys, keep your ears to the ground next week. There's a lot of announcements coming out of Vegas and WPPI next week. I'm on the media list for all the stuff that's being shown in that. So I've been getting bombarded with emails, and no major camera announcements. So don't get too excited there. But a lot of interesting lens stuff. It's a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, Interfit, you've already heard, they've got their Studio Essentials line. So there's quite a few pretty exciting announcements, some new lenses from different companies. So you'll start seeing a lot of press releases drop. If you watch the photo blogs, the DIYphotography.net, Petapixel, F-Stoppers, all those, you're going to start seeing articles drop over the next couple of days as we lead into WPPI. And then, of course, most of those blogs are posting, articles nonstop during the show. So yeah, there's a bunch of cool new stuff coming out. Okay. All right. So let's see. Jay had a question. This is a long one, so hang on here and follow along. He's been shooting for about a year now, and still has lots to learn, but he's currently shooting on a crop sensor camera, and he's about to upgrade as his love for photography is, whoops, sorry, I'm not seeing the whole question here, as his love for photography is growing. Okay, so it's a 2-part question. He's been thinking of jumping into a Canon 6D Mark II and wondering if that's a good place to start. Secondly, he saw one of my vids where I raved about the Tokina 100mm f2.8 macro lens. So he's wondering how that compares with or versus the Canon 100mm f2.8 macro, as he's thinking about purchasing that lens. He'll be using it for portraiture, and he'd like to know if the lack of IS in the Tokina, image stabilization Tokina, is going to be an issue, or will I be okay? Is let's see, is the luxury of IS on the Canon side worth it? All right, so Jay, I'm probably not going to give you the answer that you want here. So remember, I'm the guy that used to shoot full frame and said, to hell with that, and I shoot micro four thirds. So am I going to say, oh yeah, it's a good idea, you should go from crop sensor to full frame and spend a ton of money? No, you're not going to hear that out of me. I mean, if that's what you want to do, cool. But Is that going to make your photography better? No, sorry, Jay. You know, so I will tell you, you know, the smart logic. So this is, you know, from the old guy in the room that's been doing this for a lot of years. I like gear. You guys already heard me talk about how I'm drooling over that Olympus Pen F just as a fun camera to have, okay? But if you've only been at it for a year, to upgrade your body to go to full frame and then buy all new lenses and everything, I'm sorry to say, unless you are taking some of the most amazing photography that I've never seen before, I don't know that I'd spend that money. Because the camera's not going to improve your photography, man. It's just not, okay? And I will tell you, the fact that you're asking me how important image stabilization is for a portrait, that tells me that you need to do some more shooting. And I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just being honest, okay? You know, my best answer to you would be, if image stabilization is important, then why would I have used the Tokina and said, oh my God, I think it's the greatest lens ever? Right? So, you know, just saying, okay? I still think the Tokina is, for full frame and APS-C cameras, the Tokina is hands down sharpest lens I've ever used. It's an amazing lens. And for the money, when you're talking sub $400, come on, like, that's incredible. So, nah, I don't want to hear about Canon. I don't want to hear about what Sony's got. I don't want to hear about what Nikon's got. It's all crap compared to that Tokina. Done, okay? Micro Four Thirds, that's a different ballgame. One, because the Tokina is not available, and two, I'll tell you what, the two lenses that I've got for portrait work with Olympus, the brand new 45mm f1.2 Pro lens and the 75mm f1.8 lens, honestly, not BSing. I don't get paid to talk about Olympus, gang. They do not put money in my pockets. They only pay me when I go to Las Vegas or Nashville and stand on a stage, right? Okay? I don't get paid for anything I say here. Those lenses blow away that Tokina. They are wickedly sharp, okay? So, you know, in terms of the IS, here's the bottom line. If you need IS to shoot portraits, you either have a physical disability that causes you a lot of motion. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being real serious. Or you are just really sloppy, okay? And, you know, this is also assuming that you're doing some lighting or you're working in decent light. So I am making the assumption that you're not shooting your portraits in the dark, right? Okay, so you know, my honest advice to you is no. I don't hear you saying anything about lighting or grip, you know, gear or anything like that. I would rather see you, you know, maybe buy the Tokina, use it as your portrait lens. That's a bit long for portraits, 150mm, a little bit long. That's your crop factor. But I would say stick with the APS-C and improve your skill set. Maybe buy some accessories. But if you're thinking like maybe down the road, you definitely want to go full frame for whatever reason. I don't know why you would want to, but if you want to, so be it. If you're going to buy any lenses at this point, make sure that it's a lens that works on a full frame camera. In other words, don't buy APS-C lenses, right? Otherwise, then you've got to change all your glass over when you go to that full frame. So do think ahead in that sense, okay? So, Krista, you thought Sony's announcing something? I haven't heard anything from Sony yet. So I'm not saying that they're not. It's certainly possible, but I have not received, I'm not kidding, I got probably like another 12 press releases today from various companies. I've yet to see anything from Sony yet. So, you know, and Sony, it wouldn't surprise me if they keep things very close to the chest and don't release anything until Monday. Totally possible, but I haven't heard anything yet. So, Pamela Maxwell's got a question went by a little while ago here. Can I put an LED panel inside my softbox? You were looking at the Yangwano YN600 Air. So the YN600 Air, actually, I'm not sure. I've heard of that. You know, I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to Google that real quick because to tell you the truth, I'm not sure what it is. So just to answer the question the way it was, okay, yeah. So Pamela, to put one of those little panels in a softbox, you're basically going to kill it, meaning it's not going to be bright enough to really have an impact. It's a flat panel, so it's kind of like having a small softbox. Now, for these and it varies by manufacturer, right? So for these light panels, though, these smaller light panels, there are companies that make collapsible soft boxes per se, but they're smaller soft boxes that fit over it. And honestly, they're kind of pointless. So yeah, I mean, I think your better solution, in all honesty, if you've got the Angwino YN600 Air, your better solution than putting a softbox on it would be to learn a little bit about the inverse square law, and then you're going to be able to get away without using softboxes. That would be my advice. Okay. If you don't have the YN600 Air already, my additional advice would be don't buy it. But I don't think that that's ideally the route that you want to go. It is really inexpensive, but I have no idea about its build quality or any of that kind of stuff. So, again, all stuff for you to consider as far as that goes. So, DB Kelly, thank you so much. Thumbs up, folks, if you wouldn't mind, just for a second. Be greatly appreciated. Obviously, follow me on social media, all that good stuff. So next up, we got a question here from Kat. Kat, I happen to know because she's one of my patrons, is based in Las Vegas, so I'll actually get to meet Kat next week. As the senior picture season is approaching, she wants to recreate images taken at the beach or at Red Rock. What is the best way to make that look real in a studio? You're not, Kat. That's kind of the really pessimistic view. So before some of you start dumping your suggestions in, bear with me for a second. There's a couple ways you could go about doing it, Kat, but the challenge is I have yet to see someone do it seamlessly. Okay? It's really, really difficult. So I want to switch my screen over here and show you one version. And this is a version I would not encourage you to use, but I just want to, give you guys all sides of this, okay? So this is a gadget, and there's a couple of products like this on the market. It's called virtual backgrounds. Now, you can see here, and you can already start to imagine, like, this is going to be a nightmare. So it's using basically like a teleprompter type setup, and it's projecting an image into the glass, and you also have to project the image onto the background, but it puts the background behind the person. So it almost kind of does a green screen effect, but in camera. Wickedly expensive. In fact, you know that anytime you're on a product website and the links, I missed the link here, but the links talk about investment, you know that that's a problem. You don't want to go that route. But if you want to look that up, it's called Virtual Backgrounds Photography. Worst domain name ever. virtualbackgroundsphotography.com, okay? Or you do the kind of stuff that I do, Kat. In my portfolio on my website, so here, let me go to my website. If you, up at the top of the page, you click on the portfolio tab and click on composites. I have lots of shots that are all composited. So even like this, this is done in the studio, but you can kind of tell it's in the studio, okay? And I made a concerted effort to kind of make it look real, but at the same time, I did not kill myself to make it look real. In other words, I wanted it to have kind of a commercial feel, but this is done by compositing. So the way I shot this, the girl is laying in sand. I went to Home Depot. I bought 2 bags of playground sand, put a big plastic tarp out, laid the sand on it, and had the girl lay in the sand. That way I could get texture. If we were to blow this up, you see there's sand stuck to her arm and to her body, so it's got texture, all right? Shot on a gray background, put a strobe with a blue gel. I wanted blue on the background since a lot of the background was blue. And then I used an image that I had shot on Miami Beach a couple years ago and dropped that in. And this is actually 2 different images because I also dropped the clouds in as well. So it wound up being 3 images put together. It's the girl in the foreground, the beach, and then the clouds that I added to the sky. But the thing that you have to be really careful of, Kat, when you go that route of doing that kind of compositing stuff, it just kind of looks fake. So, I mean, my honest advice to you from a business model standpoint, don't do it. That's my honest advice. But do something better, okay? So when you talk about Red Rock's in your backyard. So to say to a kid from Vegas that's getting their senior portrait session done, hey, let's do your senior portraits in the studio instead of actually going to Red Rock where it's much cooler, that's not really going to fly. I mean, because you're basically going to wind up with, like, a cheesy version of Red Rock. But one of the cool things about Vegas is you've got almost every kind of background feel imaginable right there. I mean, from, urban looks to city looks to, kind of Western rural looks to obviously the Strip. You've got buildings with incredible color on them. You've got buildings with graffiti. You've got like the neon sign boneyard, graveyard that's there, all those kind of places. You're never going to be able to replicate that without it looking cheesy. But if you were going to do it, if you're determined to do it, and for whatever reason you don't want to or can't go out on location, my advice is you go out and you shoot your own backgrounds. Because you can, because it's all right there in your backyard. And then you do it as composites. On Friday night for our Patreon Zoom chat, I mentioned earlier, Kat's one of my patrons. If you remind me on Friday night, Kat, for Patreon, I will kind of show you how I did the compositing on these. It's really not super difficult, but I will go ahead and I will walk you through it and I'll show you how I did those. Okay? So another question from Brian Gursky here. He does multiple types of photography: portraits, landscapes, events, and sports. What is my feeling on how to show them on social media? Should he create multiple accounts, one for each type? So, Brian, I hope you're still here. If you're still here, I have a question for you first. So do me a favor and answer this question, and then I'll give you a good answer. When you talk about portrait, landscapes, events, and sports, are you trying to make money at all four of those? Or are you just, these are things you shoot and you want to share them, with the world? Let me know which it is, and then I can give you something that's going to be a little bit more useful. Okay? So, let's see. Another question here from Adalipsos. Do I have any lists about photo contests? Unfortunately, I'll be very honest with you, I don't. I am not... True story. So here, you guys can all have a laugh at me in one of Joe's more brain-dead moments. Last night, I did a talk for a camera club in Medford, New Jersey, which is about an hour and a half from where I'm located in Pennsylvania. Great group of people. Had a really good turnout, probably about 40, 45 people that turned out for this. And frequently when you do talks for camera clubs, they ask you if you will also stay afterwards or show up early and judge their monthly photo contest. Camera clubs love to have photo competitions, okay? Some clubs are more about learning. Some clubs are literally really cutthroat, and it's, chest pounding and bragging rights over who's got the most wins for the year, because there's a point system they put with it. So I had agreed to do the judging for this club, and honestly, I forgot that I had agreed. So the talk that I did was the best part of 2 hours. We got to the end, and they reminded me, it's like, hey, you said you do the judging round. I'm like, yep, I said I'd do it. Cool, let's do it. So we sit down. So the judging took about 2 hours. So it's coming up like on 11 o'clock at night, and I'm still, judging pictures. And we were into the digital category. The first half of it was prints. The second half of it was digital. We're in the digital category. And I was about 3/4 of the way through all the images in the digital categories. They have 4 levels in each category. And I was getting really frustrated in the digital category because unfortunately, and this is kind of common with camera clubs, but a lot of the photos that were showing up in the digital category are photos that never should have been entered in a photography contest. They just weren't very good. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being really sincere. I don't doubt that these people were trying, but they clearly were beginners. Most of the pictures had very little post-processing, so the colors were flat, etc. And I was, part of the judging is you have to give feedback on the images. And so I was mentioning, it's like, my gosh, you folks really like barns, because I had probably seen about 40 pictures of barns. And then they all politely reminded me that the topic for the contest was farms, which I did know that, but it just completely forgotten. I was like, oh my God, I'm looking at more farm pictures. Okay. And I come from Pennsylvania where there's a lot of farms. So it's like, so the challenge is with the contest things. I don't like contests for a couple of reasons. In that context with camera clubs, since they had a topic, everybody was just trying to find a picture that represented that topic. Not necessarily a picture that they were proud of, not necessarily a picture that they thought was good, but it was just a picture that represented the topic, which meant that we were judging a lot of bad pictures that otherwise would have never been entered in a photo contest. The other problem with photo contest is that somebody basically looks at your picture and says it sucks or it's good. Done. What's one person's opinion? Like, who cares? So I've never been a fan of contests. When I was younger, really young, in my late teens, early 20s, I entered what were called clip contests for newspaper photographers, where basically you submitted your tear sheets and you could win prizes for spot news photography and for feature photography and all that kind of stuff. That's where I won the awards that I have. But in terms of actually going to the trouble of printing pictures and submitting them and having everybody argue over little details that I don't care about, it's like, no, forget it. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a list. I don't really follow that. I'm confident if you Google photography contests, you'll probably find one or two websites that are like directories of all kinds of different contests. I would be shocked if that doesn't exist with a quick Google search. So, okay. Let's see. So, Kat, you said exactly what I thought. My concern has been in order to beat the Vegas heat and get the best light, they have to have hair and makeup done and on site. Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to bet, Kat. So one of the things you need to do, Kat, is you need to, from a business standpoint, you need to look at what your competition's doing. So that's the first thing. See what you're up against. How's the competition solving that problem? It doesn't mean you should do it exactly the same way, but at least know what the competition is doing. And then from there, that's not to say that you have to solve the problem and do the exact same thing, but you need to kind of evaluate and say, okay, what are my options? What might I do that's going to be different? What will, potentially work better for me? I think that if you're going to do the composite backgrounds, the best thing to do is try not to make them look too real, or work with backgrounds that are more generic. Textures, walls, wood, things like that. It's a lot easier to make that stuff look good. When you start getting very realistic things, and especially a place like Red Rock, which, to people in Vegas, everybody knows Red Rock. So it's going to be really, really hard to make it look believable and have the image, have the right feel to it. So that's a challenge. But on Friday's Patreon Zoom chat, we'll take a look at some of the compositing stuff, and I'll give you some of the ins and outs of how I do composites and how I shoot my own backgrounds. I will from time to time buy a stock image if it's going to suit what I need for the composite. I have no qualms about paying for a stock image to do my composites. But I frequently do my backgrounds for composites with this because I'm a TOG, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, I'll use my iPhone to shoot the backgrounds. But there's some things that you have to keep in mind when you shoot them. Otherwise, they're kind of not usable. So we'll get into that on Friday. Okay. So let's see, Brian Gursky, you're making money with all of them. So going back to Brian's question, Brian, thank you for the follow-up. He's doing multiple types of stuff: portraits, landscapes, events, and sports. What is your feeling on how to show them on social media? Create multiple accounts, one for each type. Okay. So, yeah, you've got an interesting range of stuff here, Brian, in the sense that you do have to be careful. And obviously, I'm pretty sure the reason why you are asking the question is you need to be careful about kind of being perceived as a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? That's never good. So I think that one of the things you need to look at is, how are you getting hired? And how are you likely to get hired? So let me break this down. For events, I may be completely wrong. I don't know where you're located. I don't know exactly what kind of events you're doing, but I don't imagine a scenario where you're booking a lot of event photography off of social media, especially Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I've yet to meet an event photographer that gets all their work because of what they post on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So that being said, that says to me there's no need to be posting that all over social media. And you basically have a section on your website where you show your best event stuff with the most personality done. Okay. Landscapes, I would question, are you really making money shooting landscapes? Now, depending on where you're at, we've just been talking about Vegas. Maybe you're as good as Peter Lick and, you've got these incredible landscapes and people are spending money. If that's the case, if you've got a following, because understand that people like Peter Lick, and obviously there's the top of the heap, right, in earnings, but we'll use him as an example. The way they make that kind of money, in addition to having great images, right? The way they make that kind of money is by building a following. That's what an artist does, because landscape is not a commercial type of photography. In other words, nobody needs the landscape. It doesn't serve a purpose other than a piece of art to decorate with. So that being said, you approach it from the artist's standpoint of building a following. And I would argue that social media is probably not going to do you a lot of good with landscapes. I would think that for landscapes, you would be better off going to the online venues where people will go to purchase images like that. So one that comes to mind, because I'm not a landscape photographer, but one that comes to mind is the website Fine Art America. Part of what they do is they put a lot of effort into SEO, search engine optimization, and marketing so that people find them. They're almost, Fine Art America is almost kind of like the Etsy, for landscape photographers. It's like, you set up your own little shop, you post your pictures, people order prints, etc. Okay. Even 500 pixels for that matter, you can allow people to purchase images from your galleries. Okay. So I would say that indeed, if you are making money with landscapes or think you can, it wouldn't hurt to have a separate social media account for them, but I'm just not so sure that you're going to generate a lot of income via Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So really, when it comes to the portraits and the sports, that's a set that you could combine easily. But again, before you combine it, look at the sports work. My hunch is you're not making money shooting sports completely freelance, meaning you just show up and take pictures and then sell it. My hunch is you're like getting paid by either, sports leagues or teams or schools, in which case sports leagues or teams or schools, they're not going to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter looking for photographers, right? So, because that's probably not how you got those gigs in the first place. So that being said, out of the things you're listing, I honestly just see portraits as the one where you're going to put the most effort into social media. But again, it's going to really depend on how you're making your money, and where your clientele are coming from. But that's kind of the way that I would encourage you to think about it. I have 4 videos on my YouTube channel, Marketing for Photographers. Check those out because I do talk about that idea of having kind of different specialties and how you can kind of present them or combine them or keep them separate. But at the end of the day, again, you've got to go back to the idea of where do you get your clientele from and where do you think you can get your clientele from. Social media stuff's cool, but sometimes all you're doing on social media is basically just showing off, which means you're actually wasting a lot of energy, right? So you got to look at where's the money going to come from. So Sean Edward Calvino, what, that moon? So I will say this, and I don't want to dive into all that. All the articles that you saw, all the fuss about Peter Lick's moon image, when I see all that crap going on, I find myself feeling bad for the photography industry. Now, you think you understand what I'm saying? No. Not because of Peter Lick. I think Peter Lick is an amazing photographer, and I think he's a brilliant businessman. I feel bad for the photography industry because so many people are pissing and moaning and whining. And why? Because they're jealous. Because look at how much money Peter Lick makes. Instead of getting off their asses and going out and doing the hard work, nobody confirmed, and maybe I missed an article, so by all means, correct me if I missed it, but nobody confirmed that Peter Lick told the buyer of that image that it was real. Peter Lick sells art. He happens to use a camera and a computer to create his art. So if somebody's willing to spend $10,000, $20,000, $100,000, $1 million, good for him. I wish I was that good. And when I say that good, I mean as a photographer, as a Photoshop artist, and as a salesperson. Instead, what do we have? We've got blog after blog after blog, writing article after article with literally tons and tons and tons of comments and Facebook threads, all people with cameras whining about how wrong it is. Like, come on, people, grow up. It's a free enterprise country. The guy's making good money, turning out a good product. Because here's the thing. You may be ticked off that he used Photoshop and made that money. And if you are, it's just because you're jealous. Get over it. The fact of the matter is, that was a really freaking cool image. And I defy anybody to tell me that it wasn't. It was awesome. Done. Should he have used a different moon than he used in another image? Sure, might have been a good idea. But if he didn't lie to the buyer, which the last I heard, that was not confirmed, one way or the other. If he didn't lie to the buyer, then all the fuss, literally, it's like, shut up. Get on with your lives. Go take pictures. Isn't that what this is all about? So that's my take on the moon thing, okay? Yeah, Brian, so you're in San Francisco. Landscape is minimal and money-making. Sports are done through contract work. Yeah, so, I mean, so honestly, Brian, in that sense, I wouldn't worry about social media for anything other than the portraits. And then, again, maybe try to up your game with the landscapes by setting up a profile on, like, Fine Art America or using your 500 pixels profile, you know, that type of stuff to try and work, because there's certainly there's opportunity there, but that's kind of the approach that I think I would take. Okay, all right, so let's see. I think I got all my questions, guys. Anybody else got a question? Oh, Carter T's got one here. Sorry, Carter, I missed yours. If you got any more questions, stick them in last minute here, because I could actually finish almost on time tonight. Okay. So, Carter T's questions. For weddings, when you can't control the light that much, do you think full frame is necessary? Carter, so I'll be honest with you, and I'll hang in here for a minute or two install so you can give me the rest of what I'm asking here. I don't understand what not controlling the light and full frame is necessary. Are you basically saying, like, if you've got to shoot in low light situations where you're going to use higher ISOs, is that why you're asking about the full frame? Give me a little feedback there, because I'm just a little not sure about the context, and I want to be able to give you a good answer. So, David Barrett, the Interfit Essentials lineup is very nice. Love the layout. It's really intuitive. Yeah, there's a lot of cool gear in there. I like Steven, but he's going to cost me money, because yeah, there's some nice stuff that I know I want to pick up that I will definitely be using. So I would encourage people, you know, to check it out. And believe me, I'm one of those people that for a lot of gear, I have no problem going to Amazon, especially when we're talking grip gear, right? I have no problem going to Amazon and buying the Korean junk, because, you know, you have to look at it from the standpoint of how often you're going to use it, what are you going to use it for, how important is the quality. So frequently for a lot of stuff, I have no problem buying the cheap stuff. What I love about what Interfit has done is, you know, they're basically trying to cut those Korean companies out of the mix, because now you're going to be able to find this Interfit product. Sure, you can buy it online, but you're going to be able to find it in camera stores. You're going to be able to walk into stores and you're going to find this stuff. And in addition to that, you've got a company like Interfit backing up with warranties and service and everything else. So it's a huge, huge win for the industry. And honestly, it's a huge one for American commerce, okay? Because, you know, it's an American company that has taken on the task of putting out a more affordable product and being able to back it up with warranties, being able to make it available in stores so that you can walk into stores and actually touch it and feel it. Because the problem, you know, I'm an Amazon junkie, but the problem with all that cheap stuff when you buy it on Amazon, you don't know exactly how cheap it's going to be until you get it. That's the problem. And then if you do have a problem with it, yeah, Amazon's got good return policies and that kind of stuff, but you're dealing with companies that, you know, they're in Korea. Half the time they don't even speak English. So pretty much all you're going to do is you're going to return it. You're not going to get any kind of other resolution. Interfit's eliminating all of that from the mix, which is awesome. Really, really awesome. So, all right, here's Carter T's Facebook. He's basically asking about that. Do you need full frame dealing with low light situations when you can't add your own light? For client work, is full frame necessary, or will an APS-C camera be okay? You know, Carter, I know photographers that shoot APS-C for weddings. I know photographers that shoot Micro Four Thirds for weddings. You know, again, if we're going to look at just the numbers, in other words, not look at the photographs, gang, but look at the numbers. Sure, full frame is the biggest numbers. So you could make the leap and say, well, that means full frame's best, because by the numbers, it's better than APS-C, which by the numbers, it's better than Micro Four Thirds. But the numbers are not what we look at. And where I just try to kind of make people stop and think when they get so focused on this full frame stuff. Because, guys, remember, go watch my video about why I switched to Olympus. I did exactly what you guys are doing, and it was stupid. I chased, ever since digital cameras came to be, starting with a Nikon D1, for 17 years, I chased bigger is better. More megapixels, more dynamic range, bigger camera bodies, more money, more weight. Why? None of it was making my photography better. Right before I made the Olympus switch, if you guys go back through my social media, I posted a whole bunch of images that I shot back in 2001 and 2002 with a 2 megapixel Nikon D1. They're every bit as good as what I was shooting with my Nikon D810. So, the challenge here is Carter, if you want to take good photography, and if you want to be a good photographer, you gotta learn photography, man. The camera's not the answer. You guys have heard me talk, and I'm not going to name names because I really, really like the guy. But, they're actually the guys. There's a couple YouTubers that are younger who have not been involved with photography more than like 5 or 6 years. They're very popular on YouTube, and they have routinely made statements about liking cameras with lots of dynamic range because it saves their butts in bad lighting situations. Meaning, if they underexpose or overexpose, they're still going to have a picture to work with. Well, I'm sorry, but that's dumb. It's just dumb. Why not learn how to be a photographer? And then you're not going to underexpose or overexpose. And then it's only a rare situation where you screw up, and that dynamic range will come in handy. But to take on the attitude that, well, yeah, I don't have to sweat it because that camera's got enough dynamic range, it's going to cover me. I'm sorry, but that's not how you become good at photography. And when I say good, I mean consistently good. These photographers I'm talking about, they're incredibly talented. Probably more talented than I am. But in terms of consistency, I'll run circles around them because I understand photography. So Carter, honestly, you sound like you're just chomping to get a new camera. That's what it sounds like. I'm going to be straight with you. So I would say to you, take a good look at the camera you're working with now, and what you got to really prove to yourself is, why do you need that new camera? Not because you heard it on YouTube, not because somebody told you it's better. Look at your current photography. Look at your current photography and tell me, when you buy that new camera, how is it going to improve immediately? Because that new camera is going to cost you close to $3,000 or more. Not to mention that you're potentially going to have to buy new lenses and everything else depending on what you have. So you got to tell me how you are going to see a $3,000 difference in quality when you buy that camera. Because I'm sorry, Carter, just buying the camera, you're not going to see a $3,000 difference in quality. That's the thing you guys got to understand. If you're going to buy the top of the line Nikon, top of the line Canon, top of the line Sony, you're putting out $3,000, gang. $3,000. Not to mention if you need new lenses, right? So answer that question. Is that camera immediately improving your photography by $3,000? That's the challenge. So that's that's kind of the way you got to look at it, guys. Okay. So let's see, Mitch. The low light performance on any relatively recent camera is so good now, regardless of, and that's very true. I mean, again, it's all on how you use the cameras. It's also understanding this. There's lots of different ways to solve problems. Back in the day when I was a kid, the highest ISO that existed was 400. And we took pictures in churches. We took pictures in wedding receptions without flashes. Okay. It's like, yes, I was around in the dark ages, but somehow we still took photography. We still took photographs. Okay. People get so hung up on this low light performance stuff these days. And the problem is, the word photography, you might want to go look it up and look up the origin of the word photography. Photo means light. It requires light to take pictures. So if you want to be able to take pictures in a dark room lit by a candle that's 30 feet away, well, you know what? Then go spend $10,000 and get a camera that's capable of doing that. But for the overwhelming majority of cameras, that's just dumb. It's dumb because that's not what we do. That's not practical, right? So light's beautiful. But what about that in newer cameras, you get a newer sensor? Wouldn't that make a difference in your photos? No, life's beautiful. It doesn't. It simply doesn't. You know, from a technical standpoint, by the numbers, yes, it makes a difference. By the eyes, doesn't make a difference. You make the difference. You make the difference. Life's beautiful. If that's the case, please explain to me why my photographs that I've posted in the last 3 months look every bit as good as the pictures that I took with my Nikon D810, which had almost double the megapixels and more than double the sensor size. So explain to that. If your thought process is accurate, how is it that I took a step backwards with the equipment then? By the numbers, I took a step backwards. I went to a smaller sensor, much smaller, with fewer megapixels. And yet, if you come to Las Vegas next week, you'll see my images printed multiple feet big. They're not software enhanced, no gimmicks, no games, printed. And they're tack sharp. So, you know, if that logic was legit, then I would pretty much be a moron for making the change that I made. It's not. You know, gang, at the end of the day, you simply have to learn how to actually take pictures, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. If you want to be a good photographer, you've got to learn photography. That's just how it works. I didn't make up that rule. I didn't decide that's how it is. But talk to any successful photographer. They know photography. They don't just have expensive equipment. They don't just have expensive equipment. They don't just have the biggest megapixels, all that stuff. No, they understand photography. They understand how to solve problems. They can actually tell me what the 4 things are that you can use to control depth of field. They understand the inverse square law, and they know how to use the inverse square law as a tool. These are things that you guys hear me repeat week after week after week after week, yet so many of you can't do it because you avoid it, because you are afraid of it, or you're too lazy to learn. But buying the gear, it's not going to get you there. That's exactly why I made the comment about these younger YouTubers that make this whole thing about dynamic range being the best thing ever because they can take bad pictures but still get something out of it. Like, where's the logic behind that? Bad is bad. If your exposure's off, your exposure's off, period. Sure, with dynamic range, you can kind of bring it back into play, but come on. Why not just do it right the first time? Much easier. So, anyway, let's see here. Let's see. Jean, because printing that big is not a matter of megapixels, unlike the masses like to believe. Oh, and that's absolutely the truth. Yeah. I mean, you don't. In fact, I think it was it F-stoppers? Jean, you probably know. One of the big blogs recently did an article where they showed a billboard printed from a 2 megapixel image, like a Nikon D1 image. Looks absolutely great. So yeah, I mean, part of the problem with this is obviously you guys got to understand. I'm not trying to make this sound like a conspiracy theory. Come on, let's be real. Camera manufacturers, camera companies need to sell cameras, right, to stay in business. Duh. Okay, so that's why Sony comes out with new cameras like every month or every 18 months. It's like, why do we really need all these new cameras? We don't. Okay, but if they're going to stay in business, they got to keep selling more cameras. There is a finite number of people that will buy cameras. Okay, so they're going to promote the new features. They're going to keep pushing bigger is better because otherwise it's not better, right? What happens is people latch onto that, and that's what people hear people talk about. That's what people get so focused on. But what they don't take the time to do is learn the cognitive science. Oh, see, I just said bad words. Science is always a bad word. And then you add a multisyllabic word like cognitive. People get like, ugh, right? If you take the time to learn the cognitive science behind how we view images at distances, you realize that all this megapixel stuff is a joke. It simply is. By the numbers, bigger's better because it's more. Sure. But that does not make a better picture. It just doesn't. So that's why you guys hear me say over and over again, you've got to start with the end game. How are your pictures going to be viewed? And I get it. A lot of you are going to say, well, you know, but I don't know. The way my pictures are being viewed today may not be the way they're being viewed tomorrow. Totally cool. You're right. I don't disagree with that. So think big. Think really big and build your ideas and your system from there. And you're still going to find out you don't need all those megapixels. So look, I'm not saying, hey, if you own a full frame camera, you're an idiot. Come on. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying if you own a full frame camera and you're happy with it, you should go and you know, get rid of it. No. But I am saying if you're sitting with a camera, and especially if you're just learning photography and you're thinking that you've got to upgrade your camera to get better pictures, oh my God, no. You're totally going about it the wrong way. That's the thing. So, Ajax Rodriguez, is there a particular way to search subjects or lessons in my YouTube channel? You know what? There is. Let me switch over here and I'll show you. Okay, give you guys a little rundown, and then I'm going to call it a night here and say goodnight. So, there's a couple things you can do when you go to the YouTube channel, and it's a little bit easier on the desktop, but you can do all these same things on the mobile app on the phone. If you know what the video is about that you're looking for, you can click the little magnifying glass. You guys can see this right. You click the little magnifying glass, and let's say you want some of the videos that I've done where I talk about backgrounds or background holders or that kind of stuff. So type in the word backgrounds and hit the search, and up it's going to come. Whoops. Did I spell it wrong? I spelled it. Would help if you spelled the word right. Okay, sorry. That'll fix that. So backgrounds. There we go. And it's going to come up and it's going to show you all the videos where I have them tagged as far as being or talking about backgrounds. The other thing that you can do that can be really, really helpful if you want to kind of focus in on a theme, click on the playlists tab. I create quite a few playlists. So from the playlist tab, you'll notice things are condensed a little bit more. So if you want to watch old TogChats, they're right here. If you want to watch videos that are just about kind of tips and advice, general photography, they're here. All of the photography tutorials are basically all of my latest videos kind of in chronological order. If you want to photograph people, if you want some advice to give to models, working with models, flashes, lighting, the last frame videos that I do. I don't do a lot of Photoshop videos, you guys know that, but the ones that I do, you can find all that stuff right here in this channel. So they're all broken down by playlists. So those are two ways that you can kind of get through and get a sense of, you know, what's there, how to find it, all that good stuff. Okay. So what do we got here? Let's wrap up with the last couple. So Harry Smith, welcome. Great to see you, man. First time. I wish you would have got here a little bit earlier. I'm going to sign off in a minute. I feel bad now, so I'll try and get one more question, Harry. But make sure you watch it. Watch the rest of the video. It'll be archived on the channel. So, Mitch Morgan, you bought a disposable camera and challenged yourself to take a couple of shots every day. It really showed you how lazy you'd become and how much theory you'd forgotten. Knowledge matters way more than gear. It absolutely does, guys. I mean, that's why I use these a ton. Now, if you remember, for a while, I actually had an Instagram channel just for my phone. And if you were all paying close attention, I didn't make a big announcement out of it, but if you pay close attention, I shut it down when I bought the Olympus gear, because now I take the Olympus camera with me everywhere. And that's also why I want that Pen F, because it'll be even easier to take everywhere. But, you know, the Nikons were just such a pain in the butt because they're so big and so heavy. I just took pictures of it, especially like my grandson, my dogs. I use this all the time. So, but the bottom line is, yeah, you got to shoot. You got to pick those cameras up. You got to use them. That's the way that you are going to get better. So, all right, let's see here. Leanne, there's a YouTube series that challenges pro photographers to use really cheap cameras like the Lego cameras. Yeah, that's I believe that's Kai that does that. Or gosh, I can't remember the name of the channel that he used to work for. But yeah, I've seen that before. And obviously, you see these guys create some really cool pictures in the process. Okay, making a great picture is the process of solving a problem. So I mean, think about this, gang. Okay, if I say to you, what does the word creative mean? Most people start talking about art, right? No, I completely disagree. Creativity is problem solving, because photographers, we're all kind of stupid in a good way. Say that with a smile. We see things and we want to photograph it. We want to record it, but we don't just want to record it. We want an amazing picture. We want it to look great. We want it to be wow, which means that we basically create problems for ourselves over and over and over again. So making great photos is the process of solving problems. Even Anand, by the way, Anand's in New Zealand. He always shows up at the very end. Here he is. Welcome, Anand. Sorry that you're not feeling well, but I'll use a great example. Anand just recently posted a photo that he did an outdoor shoot. He almost always shoots indoors. So for him to do an outdoor shoot, he had to solve problems because he's got a very distinct style. He has a way that he likes his images to look and the way that he lights them. So when he goes outside for the first time to do that, he had to solve a problem, and he did a doggone good job of it. But all good photography is a process of solving problems. The gear that you use is it's a tool. There's tons of different tools, no different than you can buy screwdrivers of all shapes and sizes. That's the same with cameras, okay? And come on, how many times have you gone to use a screwdriver and not had exactly the size screwdriver you wanted and made do with a bigger one or a smaller one? You solve the problem and you get the job done. You don't go out and buy a new screwdriver just to be able to turn the screw in, right? So anyway, gang, thank you for stopping in tonight. It was great to have all of you. I can't believe we had this many people on a Wednesday night. Maybe I need to look at switching this to Wednesday nights. But again, I apologize for all the headaches we had last week, or last Monday, sorry. So remember, next Monday, there is no TogChat. I will be in Vegas. I hope to meet a lot of you guys in Vegas. If you're coming to see my talks at Olympus, do me a favor, bring your cameras, take some pictures, okay? But in the meantime, make sure that you enter the contest to win the Spider Holster SpiderLite system. So that's the belt, the clip, everything that you need for mirrorless cameras, okay? And as always, gang, remember these words. Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.